If anybody had told me that Amanda would marry another man and even put me in prison after sending her to the university and all I did for her family, I would have fought that person with the last strength in my veins. I met this girl on a rainy afternoon inside a crowded bus where she was embarrassed for failing to pay her fares. She told them she forgot her bag at home, but they wouldn't listen. When the embarrassment became unbearable, I opted to pay for her. She looked at me with tears, whispering, "Thank you." When the bus reached my destination, I waved goodbye and walked away. So one day, I went to the shopping mall to get one or two things. As I was about to leave, I noticed a commotion nearby. A young girl was crying uncontrollably, begging and swearing at a man standing in front of her. She looked so heartbroken, and her voice trembled as she screamed at him. The man stood there coldly, holding the hand of another woman. He didn't seem moved by the tears of the girl in front of him. He was calm and distant, and his only concern was the new woman by his side. The girl continued crying, her words filled with pain. "After everything I did for you, you left me for her. You will regret this. God will judge you," she shouted through her sobs. I stood there watching, unable to look away, and then in that moment my heart stopped. The crying girl. Yes, it was her. It was Amanda. The same Amanda had met on the bus. Before I could say anything, she collapsed. Her body went limp and hit the ground, her tears still fresh on her face. A crowd began to gather, but no one moved to help. Even her boyfriend, the man she had been crying over, didn't care. He simply turned to his new girlfriend, held her hand and walked away, leaving Amanda lying there on the floor. I pushed through the crowd and lifted her into my arms. I carried her to my car and drove her to the nearest hospital. I stayed by her side as the doctor attended to her, my heart aching for the pain she must have been feeling. When she finally woke up, her eyes filled with tears again. She looked at me. In that moment, I saw someone who was completely broken. From that day, things changed between us. I never went far in school, not because I wasn't smart, but because I didn't have interest in it. I've seen too many people who studied hard, got debate degrees, and yet they end up working for someone who never even finished school. I started a furniture business for nothing, and through hard work, determination and prayers, it grew into something big. Today my business is thriving. I make between 3 to 5 million every 2 weeks, sometimes even more. When I started making money, the first thing I did was to make sure my siblings went to school. I paid their fees, made sure they have everything they needed, and supported them until they graduated. After that, I opened a family business so that everyone in my family could have something to rely on. As time went on, Amanda and I grew closer. I began to see the kind of person she truly was. She wasn't just beautiful, she was trustworthy and hardworking. She was everything I could ever hope for in a woman, a true wife material. When she joined me in my furniture business, she didn't sit back and relax like some people would. Instead, she got fully involved. She was modest and focused, and before long, she started noticing things I hadn't seen. So one day, she came to me and said, "Your boys are stealing from you." I was surprised, but I trusted her judgment. So I told her to handle it, and she did. Amanda went through the records, found where the money was going, and blocked all the loopholes. From that day, I entrusted her with all the finances of the business. She took over completely, and not once did she disappoint me. Every naira was accounted for, and I saw my profit grow even more. So one evening, as we were sitting together, I asked her, "Amanda, you are very intelligent. Why didn't you go to the university?" She looked at me and smiled sadly. "I wanted to," she said, her voice soft. "In fact, I got a scholarship once. A governorship candidate came to our area, promising to sponsor people like me through university. He gave us hope, told us to dream big, even bought jam form for us. But after the election, he lost. And with that, all his promises disappeared. He didn't keep his word. The scholarship never happened, and the jam form he bought for me expired. That was how my dream of going to school ended. Her words broke my heart. One day I decided to visit her parents to tell them about my plan. When I arrived at their home, I sat down with them and said, I want to help Amanda go to the university. I will take care of everything from her jam fund to her fees. I believe in her and I know she deserves this chance. Her parents were overwhelmed. I bought her jam form and encouraged her as she prepared for the exam. Amanda worked hard and passed with flying colors. When it was time for her to go to the university, I paid for everything, her tuition, her books, and everything else she needed. The only thing I didn't pay for was accommodation at the university because my house was close by. I told her she could stay with me and she agreed. But I made a vow to myself. I will never touch her while she was living under my roof. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. Amanda respected me even more for it. So one day, Amanda left her phone at home while she went to school. While I was at home, her phone started ringing. I picked it up and the voice on the other end said, Please come quickly, her mother has fainted. I didn't waste any time. I rushed to Amanda's family house and found her mother lying on the floor. Without thinking twice, I carried her into my car and drove straight to the hospital. After a few hours, the doctor stabilized her and she became okay. But just 3 days later, something strange started happening. Amanda's mother's left leg began to swell. At first, we thought it was nothing serious, but the swelling grew worse by the day. The pain became unbearable for her, and the leg started expanding and busting open in places. It was horrifying to watch, and we didn't know what to do. We took her to every hospital we could think of. We spent days and nights searching for a cure, but no one could give us any answers. The leg just kept getting worse. So one day the doctor called us aside and said, I'm sorry, but there's only one option left. We have to amputate the leg. If we don't, it will kill her. The news broke me. Amanda and I didn't know what to say or do. I stopped attending to my business and Amanda began skipping her lectures. We couldn't focus on anything else because her mother's condition consumed all our thoughts. The doctor demanded for 3.5 million naira for the surgery. I didn't hesitate. I raised the money, every single naira, because saving her life was more important than anything else. The surgery was successful, but it was a long and painful recovery. I stayed by Amanda's side through it all, holding her hand and telling her everything would be okay. I could see the pain in her eyes, not just for her mother, but for everything her family was going through. So one day, while I was sitting by her mother's side, a pastor came to visit one of their family members in the hospital. Somehow, he was directed to our room instead. He introduced himself and said, The Lord sent me here. At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Then he turned to Amanda and said, This sickness in your mother's leg wasn't natural. It was caused by a student she flogged. The child's family placed a curse on her. Have you not amputated the leg, the infection would have entered her stomach and she would have died. Amanda and I were shocked. We couldn't believe what we were hearing. The pastor continued, I will pray for her, but you must be careful. If another wound opens on that leg, everything you have done so far will be ruined. But don't worry, God will protect her. We thanked the pastor with tears in our eyes. His words gave us hope and reminded us that we are not alone in this battle. After the pastor's visit, I couldn't stop thinking about Amanda's mother. Her leg had been cut off and she was now stuck in one place, completely dependent on others. It broke my heart to see her like that. She was a strong woman who had worked hard all her life, and I knew she deserved better. One night, I sat alone and thought to myself, how can I just sit and watch her live like this? I knew I had to do something, so I made a decision. I sold one of my land for 30 million naira. It was a big decision, but I didn't hesitate. I wanted to give Amanda's mother a fresh start. I took 7 million naira from the money and started a business for her. I set everything up, making sure it was something she could manage easily, even in her condition. When I told her about it, she cried and thanked me. But just as I was about to leave, another problem came up. Amanda's elder brother, who had been serving his master as an apprentice, came home with terrible news. His master had dismissed him on false charges, claiming he had stolen from the shop. Because of that, the man refused to settle him with a dime. When I heard his story, I felt a deep pain in my heart. He had spent years working for his master, hoping to be settled so he could start his own business, only to be sent away without a dime. I called him and said, "Don't worry, God will not abandon you." From the money I had left, I gave him 10 million naira to start his own business. With the remaining money, I reinvested in my own business to keep it growing. Amanda's family couldn't believe what I've done for them. Their love and respect for me grew even stronger. They took me as their own. They didn't just treat me like an in-law. They treated me like their son. I felt like I had finally found a home in their hearts. 3 years passed. Amanda graduated from the university. I had paid for everything, so I threw a big celebration for her. It was a proud moment for both of us, and I thought it was the beginning of our future together. After her graduation, Amanda decided to stay with her parents for a while. Even though she wasn't living with me anymore, our bond was still strong. We talked every day, and nothing seemed to be out of place. But then 3 months after she moved to her parents' house, something changed. One day I called her, and she didn't pick up. I tried again and again, but there was no answer. At first, I thought maybe she was busy, but as the days went by, she didn't return my calls. I became worried. I decided to visit her to find out what was going on. When I got to her house, what happened there left me completely shattered. As soon as Amanda saw me from a distance, she tried to hide. My hands sank. I couldn't understand why she would act like that. When I entered the house, her mother confronted me. Her words hit me like a thunderbolt. "Stop visiting Amanda," she said harshly. "Tell us how much you spend on this family. I will pay you back 10 times over. Just leave our daughter alone." I was stunned. My hands spooned as I tried to make sense of what was happening. They just asked me to leave. I left their house that day filled with anger and heartbreak. For 3 weeks, I tried to figure out what I've done to deserve such treatment. Then one day, I heard the news that Amanda was having her traditional wedding at her parents' house. I couldn't believe it. My heart burned with rage and pain. How could she do this to me? How could she move on without a word after everything we've been through? Determined to find out the truth, I went to her compound to stop it. But what I saw when I got there broke me in ways I never thought possible. The man she was marrying, yes, it was him. Yes, the same man who had broken her heart at the shopping mall. The same man who left her crying and fainting in public while he walked away with another woman. The same man I had comforted her about and helped her move on from. I couldn't hold back. I shouted, "This wedding will not hold. Amanda is my wife." But Amanda turned to me in front of everyone and said words I never expected to hear. "I don't know you," she said. Her words cut through me like a knife. I couldn't believe what was happening. The family I had helped, the woman I loved and sacrificed everything for, were now treating me like a stranger. Before I could process what was happening, the police arrested me. Amanda's new husband, who was wealthy and well connected, had used his influence to have me charged with disrupting public peace. In court, I pleaded my case, but his power was too great. I was sentenced to 3 years in prison. After serving 3 long years in prison, I was finally released. Life after prison was not easy, but I was determined to move on. One afternoon, as I was sitting in my workshop, one of my boys came to me and said, "Someone is outside looking for you." I wiped my hands and went to see who it was. When I stepped outside, my heart stopped. Standing there was Amanda. She looked pale and weak, nothing like the confident woman I once knew. The moment she saw me, she fell on her knees and burst into tears. "Please forgive me," she cried. Rage filled my chest. I felt all the pain she caused me come rushing back. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to show her face after everything she and her family did to me. Without thinking, I picked up a cutlass lying nearby and raised it in anger. Before I could do anything, my neighbor rushed over and grabbed my arm. "Calm down," he shouted. "At least hear what she has to say." I refused, but after much pleading from my neighbor, I dropped the cutlass and sat down. But in my mind, I was boiling. All I kept thinking was, when you are done talking, get out of here. Through her tears, Amanda began to speak. "I'm so sorry for everything," she said. "I don't even know where to start. 2 years after my wedding, my husband was arrested. He was linked to a drug cartel and kidnapping ring. The government seized all his properties, except the house we were living in. Everything he had was gone." She paused, her voice trembling. "Because I didn't have a son for him, his family turned on me. They said I was useless and sent me packing. I had nowhere to go. My own family is in ruin. My father and mother are critically ill, but we don't have money to take them to the hospital." I sat there silently, my heart pounding. She continued, "My husband gave my family 3 billion naira to forget about you. They accepted it, and that was how I married him. But now the money is gone. You don't even know how it vanished. My family is suffering. I've lost everything. Please, I beg you, forgive me. I don't know where else to turn." Her words fell on deaf ears. I couldn't feel a shade of pity for her. After everything I've done for her and for her family, she betrayed me for money. She destroyed my life. I sat there staring at her, unmoved by her tears. When she finished speaking, I stood up and went inside. I came back with 2 axes in my hands and looked at her in the eyes. "Get out!" I said harshly. "Don't ever come back here again." She tried to beg, but I raised the axe and charged at her. My neighbor held me back again, shouting, "Don't do something you regret." Amanda scrambled to her feet and ran, tears streaming down her face. As I watched her disappear into the distance, I felt no regret. She had made her choice, and now she is living with the consequences. Life has taught me a hard lesson. Not everyone you love deserves your kindness, and some people will only value you when it is too late. Thanks for watching. Thank you.